Well, good evening, everyone. It appears you can't see me, but there we are. Welcome. I hope you're ready and relaxed for your pain au chocolat and your croissants, because we're in France for the third round of the ACER Malta GT3 Championship. We are more specifically at the Circuit Paul Ricard for tonight. Really intrigued to see how this is all going to turn out with a fantastic the fantastic circuit ahead of us. A really interesting race last time out at the Red Bull Ring. Of course, we did have Zandvoort at the first round and then followed by the Red Bull Ring. Both races dominated by Ryan Carroll. But there you can see the calendar that we currently have. We have 5 circuits in Europe. Tonight we go to Paul Ricard. Then we head to Spain for holidays with the Circuit Ricardo Tormo next week, before a week's break, before heading over to Barcelona for the final leg of the European stage. Then a triple header of US circuit, followed by with Laguna Seca and Watkins Glen, and then the circuit of the Americas to round off our calendar. Yeah, what an incredible season we're having so far. Plenty of drivers really to look out for, and so I'm really intrigued to see how that's going to turn out here. These are your race standings last time around. Ryan Carabot once again having a superb finish, but look at the time there, just on the top right of Adrian Manduca's card. 0.2 of a second was the gap between those two, right at the very line. He now draws a level alongside Shaw Kassar in his McLaren 720S GT3, and this is going to be so crucial towards kind of is distinguished tonight. There you can see the rest of the field. Dental Edges ahead of Ilan Dimik Grish in fourth and fifth. The two McLarens then ahead of Dominic Zimmerman in his Soul Lamborghini Huracan, with Gabriel Quattromani in his Ferrari, with James Smith and Porsche with Warren, and then D'Agostino in a P11, followed by Daryl Martinelli. Maya Lafella, a debutant last time around, with Jaden Elal, and then Chris Gatt with Ericsson, Holmberg, and Quattromani rounding out the 18 cars that took part last time around at the Red Bull Ring. Of course, super interested because we go into a whole new dynamic with Paul Ricard. Let's have a look at the championship standings then. Event, in my opinion, and we now head to the circuit Paul Ricard. 5.8 kilometers in length, with the number of turns being 15 corners. I believe we actually missed the chicane on the Mistral straight. Only 30 meters of elevation, so pretty much nothing to these cars whatsoever. But I think qualifying is going to be so crucial to kind of get into for this one, because you know you're really looking at such a long circuit, a very technical circuit, but also one with a lot of straights. So setup is going to be mighty important to get into. And we now head in towards this qualifying phase. What are we going to be looking out for in qualifying? I think whoever has the setup down in this session, that's going to be proving really crucial. You know, will it be able to go to the, you know, the more the lighter cars of the McLaren and the Ferrari that are more aerodynamically stable, or will it be the grumbling Fords that will be able to make it on top? We'll have to see in qualifying before we then head into that. So we've got collaborations for this Velocity Esports Racing of course production with Hyundai, Intercomp, Monsters Energy, Brandon Garage, Level Academy, and the Specialists. Thank you so much for being a part of this. We're going to the ad breaks now before we then head into qualifying for round 3 of the ACER Malta GT3 Championship at the circuit Paul Ricard in the south of France. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you in a moment. Apology for that. But yeah, let's get into what this qualifying has in store for us. Of course, Ryan Carabot, 2 out of 2 pole positions. But let's have a think about the circuit for just a moment, because of course we went over those 15 corners. That is going to be massively crucial to what this kind of holds for each car. So I think the main straight and then maybe on the run down towards turn 3 will definitely be the advantage to the forward, and then we'll have down that Mistral straight that will also go with the 4. But then you kind of got those tricky corners of 3, 4, 5, 6 in towards 7, and then of course you've got that really technical third sector that will play advantage to the McLaren and the Ferraris, and maybe even the Lamborghini of Dom Zimmerman. So I think a lot of our drivers will be hoping to take advantage. I wonder if this will maybe be kind of track specific to maybe a couple of drivers, being if they can maybe open up an opportunity to get into this session and really lay a hammer blow to kind of the rest of their rivals. I think that would be also super crucial. So I'm sure we'll head into the qualifying session when we possibly can. I believe a quick update has been outed to the game, but I definitely Ryan Carabot, Sean Cassar and Adrian Manduka will be the main contenders. You're also seeing them just out there at this moment in time. But listen, we've got 16 drivers for us tonight, and it will be those kind of 3 that you'll see at the top of your screens that will be the main contenders. So we now head our way around. So some of the warm-up laps, the track looks pretty green for the moment, but our drivers will be trying to push their tires into the asphalt and see what they can do to try and again heat up the tires, heat up the brakes. It does take quite a while when it comes to GT cars. Of course, they're their tires are quite a bit harder compared to the single seaters that you may be used to in if you do watch our Formula 1 series, the V1 Malta series. Yeah, these take quite a while, maybe 2-3 laps to up and really get into a rhythm to really fire up the entire car. When it's single seaters, you only really need one lap to if your car's not quite there in the zone. But just having a look around the circuit, you can see how technical this can be, but also you do have that kind of respite that you may need to be able to refocus after such a tough section. I'm really thinking that kind of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 section from that really tight chicane that is very, very difficult to negotiate. There is a Quattromani, Gabriel Quattromani in his Rusty's Lightning McQueen inspired Ferrari. Really hoping to push on with that. Let's see how he can do, because of course he had a points finish last time around at Spielberg, but really did struggle in that opening round at Zandvoort, but again has probably gone back into his kind of sim rig and really pushed the limits of that Ferrari to try and get it dialed in for likes of Paul Ricard. I do believe it will be a very similar story to Riccardo Tormo, because when you get to Riccardo Tormo, you do have maybe 1 or 2 long straights in the circuit, but then that's really about it. The rest of it is all really technical, so you're kind of adding a bit more downforce to what you should have around here. And of course the very high speed corners will really put some load into the tires, so it looks like we're starting to get some of these times about to fly in. Remember, a 20-minute session followed by a 50-minute race, or I believe a 45-minute race. I'll correct myself there. But again, the drivers looking to really try and find those edges of the track where they need to just kind of push out these advantages and really just find any 10th or 2 that they can to get around this circuit. Adrian Manduka going a little bit wide there through that very fast right-hander. Of course, we didn't have Paul Ricard last time around. I think the only circuit, even a circuit returning to the calendar, no. So compared to what we had in season 1, it is a completely different story, which is going to be massive compared to what we're looking at. We're looking at 8 fresh new circuits to the calendar, which is going to really play I think a lot of interest to this championship and really mix it up. It's not like anyone's going to have previous experience, especially competitive experiences either, so it will definitely be one to really try and attack. But of course, if you're not quite aware of Paul Ricard, some may know it from the Formula 1 on French Grand Prix that they're hosted back in the 80s, maybe the 70s was very much a testing venue as well, and then it of course went off the calendar around about the early 90s before returning in 2018, and of course coming to an end in 2022. But I think the bigger thing it hosts now, of course, is a GT event, and that being the 1,000 kilometers of Paul Ricard right at the beginning of the season of the Fanatec of the World Challenge Series that has come to a close about 2 weeks ago now. So we're now looking at Nick Ice in his Ford Mustang. The few laps, I believe, has been completed already. We don't quite have the times up yet. I wonder if we will be able to see them at some point and just kind of get the time differentials, see kind of the field spread as well, and who's kind of in that gap. You can kind of see that just for a brief moment there, but Adrian Manduka still leading the way, 153.375. Not far away is Sean Cassar. So it really does seem like in these early stages that it does seem to be suiting the more technical and aerodynamic cars, the more nimble cars, as I like to say, of the Ferrari and the McLaren. Because after Ryan Carabot, you've got Mark D'Agostino in his McLaren 720 GT3 Evo. D'Agostino, of course, there on your screen, grabbing a bit of a toe from a fellow manufacturer driver. So that's going to be oh so crucial, that being Borsch just in front of him, Johan Borsch, if I've got it correct here on my spreadsheet. Yeah, it is Johan Borsch, and a very colourful livery on that car. That's very nice, and I do see a symbol on that. I believe that's Malton, but I don't want to go too far and just kind of offend any Maltese people and say that's a complete wrong thing. So I'm just going to stick to what I know, but and I do know that is an Aston Martin advantage. So V12, that's absolutely tearing up the track here. Johan Borsch currently sitting in P11, but I believe this is going to be his first time around as he heads his way in towards turn 40. Hard on the brakes for 50, trying to get the car rotated. Not quite as simple as it seemed. You have to really get it slowed down, and of course Borsch will have to take that back, it seems like, and drops to 12th, but over the time in beam he goes. It looks like also Mark D'Agostino goes to 5th place. Ryan Carabot goes to 2nd, and Denzel Agius puts himself up into P4. So you look at really the McLarens in 3rd, 4th, 5th, who have been ultra competitive at this moment in time. I'm really intrigued to see how that kind of car is working out, because it does seem to be quite solidified amongst those three drivers. The next one is Maya Lafella, so let's switch to the number 5 McLaren. She was a brand new driver that featured last time around at Spielberg, and she must have had so much fun. She decided to return here for the 3rd round of the championship, of course, missing out in Zandvoort, and she heads her way now round in P8, so a solid position. Of course, I believe she was in another championship that was sponsored by Motor Racing, because I think we had the GT trophy, and then we had the GT Championship, which is what you're currently watching now. So let's see what Maya Lafella can do on this time around, as the McLaren just starts sprinting up to the line, and we'll go over that timing beam, and it doesn't seem to be an improvement this time around. Sorry, it was a 155.247. I can just about make out down there in the bottom right. So, you know, Maya Lafella still running well, not quite up with the top end of the field here, but you know, with the results that have been showing of Maya Lafella, she's very much a strong midfield runner. It's kind of just dialing that car and then getting the race pace down, what she is looking for. So it's Manduka from Carabot, from Cassar, from Agius, with Nick Ice, and then D'Agostino with Martinelli, Lafella, Zimmerman, and Chris Gatt rounding out the top 10. Good to see Chris Gatt, a driver that's been trying to consistently be better and better and better and better as a GT driver. That number 34 running pretty good, running with the kind of I'd say Formula One inspired Pyra blue and black livery. That kind of giving me a little bit of vibes back to 2022, where Daniel Ricciardo was in his last season for the McLaren Formula One team. But yeah, it's a really nice livery that he's currently running with. And behind him, he does have, it looks like Ericsson there in the BMW M4 GT3. He's running down there in 11, so a position behind and sitting right behind the BMW now in its kind of own here of using that V6 twin turbo engine, be able to roar down the straights compared to the I believe again the V6 turbocharged car of Chris Gatt. So yeah, I've actually been learning recently about the McLaren start procedure, because you can actually, I don't know how well it works in the Assetto Corsa Competizione, but yeah, you can actually, on your way to the grid, you can press a brake to charge up the turbo that it has, and if you get it completely right, get the best reaction time, you can absolutely launch yourself off the line and grab a position or two. So one kind of advantage that the McLaren has compared to maybe the rest of the field. I'm not entirely sure if that's maybe possible with other cars. I may have to be delving into a bit more research here, but you know, I think those McLarens have been looking oh so strong. It seems to be really contesting the majority of the grid and being a kind of a star, as we now see Sean Cassar pulling over to the side. I wonder if he's maybe made a mistake, or if he's yeah, the car doesn't feel nice anymore, so I'm going to try and change something. Ryan Carabot has taken the lead now in this one, so he goes to the top of the standings, and I would like to see him pop the time out here, just to kind of see how far he is in front of Manduka. I'm not sure if it may be a tenth of a second. It might be quite a load. Goes passing across the kind of the asphalt there to try to avoid any traffic here, but Ryan Carabot does seem to be an immovable object here, because he's been absolutely superb. That's Ericsson transporting himself back to the pits and getting a couple of things changed here. But we're kind of going into those last couple of moments of qualifying. This is probably where you want to be, just getting yourself set and ready for those last couple of moments. About maybe four and a half laps at this rate. If you were out there, you're seeing now the two Project Versio cars of Lafella and Carabot, who have been doing really well, but also got Nick Heisler up in P8 for the Ford Mustang, so really flying the flag high for the American manufacturer. He's with the Lizard Racing team, so two kind of key teams we've got out there, being Project Versio and the Lizard Racing team. Of course, I think Project Versio really kind of being the top of those kind of hosting the top drivers out there, which has been really mighty to watch. You know, the Lizard Racing team does have that outstanding livery. You know, Nick Ice has been running with it. Of course, we know that Dominic Zimmerman is also part of the team, as well as Ericsson as well. So these guys have been really out there trying to fly the green and purple. But let's see what these last couple of moments of this qualifying session can really host. As we now see Dominic Zimmerman just heading over the line to start his lap. Let's see what the Lamborghini is like in towards turn number one. He heads his way there, just braking very late as he possibly can, just trying to get it through the S section, and then on towards turn number 3. You're looking large dealer hotel, and on towards this corner. You're really running the rumble strip, trying to open up the corner as much as you possibly can. You're really trying to find the faster way there, and I really enjoyed that. There's a lizard on the side of the car, the left side of that Lamborghini, which is absolutely immaculate to see. Yeah, let's just follow again with Dominic Zimmerman for the remainder of the lap, just to kind of see how that Lamborghini is getting settled in, and of course through that left corner is completely flat as you head on towards 7 and on towards the Mistral before you hit the Sainz corner. And there you can see the lizard just on the side. That's been all over social media recently, within the last month or so. You know, it's been great to kind of see out there at the moment, but you're just seeing how much he's trying to open up the corner, even though it's easy flat. With these GT3 cars, you really have to open up every single corner. You saw there Ryan Carabos in the background there, just trying to get through the corner, and I think running a little bit too wide. Then in towards Bucel. Or double gouge, I think. No, that's Pouon, my apologies. Yeah, some of the corner names are quite difficult to pronounce on this one, I won't lie to you. But we've gone through 8, gone through 9, gone through 10, on towards 11, now on towards 14 here of Virage de la Tour, towards Virage du Pont. Through that last corner. Now you have to plant the power and let the V12 absolutely sing down there on towards the start finish ring. Will he go maybe a bit faster? He does it. He doesn't, but I think the lap time is unfortunately gone, indeed invalidated somewhere, because yeah, that was not an improvement. We now approach the last 5 minutes of this qualifying session. So we've got a breakdancing cone leaving the frame as well. Ryan Carabot still out in front as well. Adrian Manduka still following in behind. So those two have been really embroiled in a big old battle. The fastest, the best time there, 1 minute 53.010 for Adrian Manduka. Again, losing about half a second. But let's see what we can do through here. Of course, I don't have any sector times on me, no timing screen. So it's going to be a real blind guess. He heads over the line, and he's still just over a tenth and a half off, it seems like, of his best lap time that time around. So, you know, Manduka seems to be in a good phase at the moment, but he is going to give a third pole position away to Ryan Carabot out in front. But we all know how good of a sim racer Ryan Carabot is. You know, he's a 3-time V1 multi-series champion, and really has grown from his last time out in the ACER Malta GT3 championship, where he, you know, finished 4th place with 3 podiums. Of course, really struggled in his first race in Zolder, 11th, where he's really learning the ropes. And then by the end of the season, he's putting in some decent results. Did miss Indianapolis last time around, but he's really kind of honed in on his GT3 skills, really gone away and understood what it takes to drive one of these cars. Dominic Zimmerman going to P8. I just noticed there a little flicker of the timing screen. We're now going into these last kind of 3 minutes, and I wonder if who's going to be able to maybe get those last 2 laps in, because of course we know a lap is around about 1 minute 53 around here. So you're kind of just looking to see who's going to get that final lap. A couple of flashing yellows as well. Manduka pulling over to the side to let Maya Lefela through. There's somebody else as well just in behind as Adrian Manduka, so I think he's going to try full potentially into this gap. Sean Kassar heading out quite late, so I think he's going to try and get a singular lap time. You've got 2.5 minutes left on the clock. You know, this is kind of a prep lap, and he's going to try and see if he can manage the car, put it into the zone after 1 out lap, and then he's going to go for an absolute flyer. He's left himself a little bit of spare time, but it's only about, what's that, 25 to 27 seconds of spare time. Just seeing that Adrian has been disqualified from this qualifying session, so he's going to officially be starting at the back. I wonder if that's maybe gone over the limits too many times, but that is going to be a really interesting one. But yeah, going back to what makes this circuit so famous, of course, is the opening round of the GT1 Endurance Championship, and the season as a whole. Of course, it goes from kind of from an afternoon race into a night race, and that's where it all kind of finishes and wraps up around the very late nights of late night of in France. Yeah, you kind of maybe if you spend a little bit too long, you're kind of out there out on the racetrack near close to 1 o'clock in the morning. They do go to that long, especially this year's, as far as I'm I remember, yeah, and I know a couple of people that spent a long time at the track, and yeah, after the race, spent about an hour or two there, and we're already down at 1 o'clock in the morning. So it does look like Sean Cassar is going to be able to make to the line. It's all about who's going to be able to maybe cross the line with 0 minutes to go, and then we'll kind of find out who is going to be one of the last drivers. So I believe this is going to be the last lap for a couple for all the drivers here. Sean Cassar now heading in towards that first corner. Denzel, as you see now on our screens, really flowing through a lot of the corners with a beautiful sense here, really slaloming through 6 on towards 7, and now he's heading down that long Mistral straight, the longest straight on the circuit. And he's of course going to be topping out about 170, 180 miles an hour as the twin turbo V6 engine absolutely soars. Manduka in the pits, Ivan Dimek Grishi in the McLaren in the pits, so is Daryl Martinelli, so is Johan Borsch, so is Ericsson, so is Gabriel Quattromani. They can't go any faster than what they can do. What about Mark D'Agostino there, really sitting pretty up in the top 5 for the racing team. He heads into the pits on the and of course they're using the old pit lane, so he can't go any faster, but we'll keep an eye here. Nick Ice can only go as far as 7th, so he'll be on the 4th row of the grid. If anyone out there Arabot is going to leave this to be on the top here. We've got 3 cars out there, and I think that's Chris Gatt getting maybe held up, but was Maya Lafella trying to go through. We switched that pretty quickly. And if Maya Lafella, I think if she comes into the pits now, that will kind of tell us if she's being held up here, or if Chris Gatt's just too close behind it. Behind her, and she's already bailed out going into that 3rd sector, and that kind of spells the end. Simon Barbara in his McLaren decides not to finish the lap, and that will signify the end of this qualifying session, and a superb session for the Ford Mustang. It was so close between the top 2 of course Ryan Carabot and Adrian Manduka, but of course they are the 2 contenders, with Sean Cassar in his debut season really having that outside look in here. We'll see if that McLaren can go any further. We now approach onto our final results here. So Ryan Carabot ahead of Adrian Manduka, Sean Cassar followed by Denzel Agius. Then we see Mark D'Agostino and Ivan Dimek Girishi in his McLaren will pull up into 6th place. And then we saw Nick Ice in the Ford Mustang. He'll be alongside Dominic Zimmerman, with Daryl Martinelli, Maya Lafella rounding out the top 10 with Johan Borch, Simon Barbara on the 6th row of the grid with Ericsson and Gatt, and Gabriel Quattromani will be on the next row. No need to go into some adverts because we are now lined up on the grid, unless we want to go into an ad break, and I think that's the best thing to do now. Well, we're here in Paul Ricard waiting for the formation lap to commence, and Ryan Carabots will get us going to begin this formation lap here. 45-minute race plus a mandatory stop will have to be made by all of these drivers. Of course, there will be plenty to talk about as we go throughout this formation lap, because of course we know that Ryan Carabot will take his third pole position of the season. He'll be the only driver that is currently on pole position. Of course, with Major Manduka, of course, third in the last race, in the first race of Zandvoort, then second in Spielberg. It seems written in the stars, doesn't it? A third, a second, and then a first. Is that going to be what we're dealing with by the end of these 45 minutes? Will Ferrari take a win in this championship for the first time? Probably since Adrian Manduka himself back in Suzuka, round 6 of the championship, where he finished ahead of eventual champion Sheldon Muscat. Titanic battle in that one for the ages. Sean Cassar will be hopeful in that McLaren. Of course, we see a quadruple of McLaren there with Cassar, Agius, D'Agostino, and Ivan Dimek. So I definitely think that there will be some really interesting drivers out there if they can really manage that McLaren and really get themselves into a little bit of a vibe, I think, into a rhythm as well. I really do think they will be the ones to be able to go through and to push on for big points tonight. But I think it may be Sean Cassar, the leader on that one, as long as he stays on the track for 45 minutes. But I think second best after that, it might actually have to be Denzel Agius. I think that he'll definitely be one of the drivers to look out for. You know, he's experienced in this championship. He's been in that McLaren last season. And so why not? What about Nick Ice in that second of seemed to be 2 out of 2 Ford Mustangs. It looked like one of them has just left, which I think was Adrian. It seemed like, so it doesn't look like he is going to be partaking in the race tonight. 2 Mustangs will be flying the American flag for tonight. What about Dom Zimmerman? Had a really strong finish, I believe, a 9th and a 6th in Zandvoort and in Spielberg, as he looked to really hopefully take a great result here, try and maybe potentially sit in that top 8 this time around. What about Dado Martinelli, an experienced driver? Will he be able to push up, or will he be a struggling day? We'll have to see what that Ferrari is like, because Manduka's managed to get the pace out of it, but yeah, the other two have not quite been able to get there yet. What about Maya Lafayette? Doing too bad whatsoever in that project of Joe car. Have to see how she turns out under Johan Borges, the sole Aston Martin, really having to fly the flag, and I think that colourful livery we'll be able to see from a mile away. And then we see Simon Barbara, Ericsson, Chris Gatt, and Gabriel Quattromani. We look at the back of the field to be able to show off all these incredible cars, but we turn now back to the front because we're about to get racing here. We're about to drop the green around the Paul Ricard circuit in the south of France. It will be Carabot up against Manduka, who will be able to get the car into the prime stages in the early stage. We'll have to see here. The brakes are being pressed on and they get set here. Round number 3 of the ACER Malta GT3 Championship. The green is about to be dropped. We go racing here in Paul Ricard. Good start there for Ryan Carabot off the line, but Manduka is going to show no fear here. Neither is Cassar as he bombs it down the inside, tried to attack the Ferrari there, and he's not quite able to do so. I think that was a cone flicking up there on the background here. But look at the McLaren in behind, really early on the attack, being able to get the jump. There's contact between the two, and that's going to send Manduka wide. After all of this, Manduka now pushed him right off here, and that is going to really frustrate him immediately. But after all of this, Ryan Carabot has got an absolute lead on this one, with Ilan Dimegrishi going out a little bit wide on that part here. The Ford Mustang will absolutely blast off down the Mistral straight as he now looks to try and open up a little bit of a gap before his pit stop. Just see in the battles in the back there, they completely really pack up here. There seems to be kind of three different groups you've got at this moment in time, and again Sean Cassar looking for an opening on that Ferrari. That's been a big battle so far, and I wonder if D'Agostino may be able to get into the mix as well. Because that 720S GT3 McLaren has been absolutely superb off the start, really maintained his position, really held the elbows out to the start, and I really think that he's going to be a driver that's going to really feel the contention here. But again, that gap continues to open up, and I think Manduka just thinking, I need to just get away here, you know, I need to start just closing here and using my pace up. But you know, Sean Cassar just seems so aggressive. He doesn't want to take second place lying down in these early stages. It's been absolutely fantastic to keep an eye out for these two. We cross over to end the first lap, and Carabao has a huge lead of the stars. He flicks some more cones up, in fact, into his own windshield, which wasn't quite ideal on that one. But we'll have to see how it all pans out, because he's now starting to get into a bit of a rhythm, which doesn't mean slow down. That means they'll try and extend that gap as much as you possibly can. Will Manduka be able to get into the rhythm as well? I think Sean Cassar will try and immediately follow, and then have those three McLarens really tossing about here. We got D'Agostino, Agius and Dimegrisci, because let's keep an eye on that little tussle there. It looks like Ilan is really struggling to get it out of turn number 6, and that's just him off contention there off the exit of turn number 7. That kind of golden buttery yellowish McLaren livery was all over the place. And look at that, Denzel Agius now trying to take fourth back away from D'Agostino. Meanwhile ahead we've had an overtake as Sean Cassar goes ahead of Manduka. So it does seem like those McLarens are looking pretty pacey on the street, unless Manduka has made a mistake. It seems like it may have been only minimal from what I can see in terms of the gap, but that is a big move for Sean Cassar to make. They've been, you know, so consistent, and you know, as a manufacturer's title, this is why they were ahead by a big amount. Both times they have collected 70 points over the course of Zandvoort and Spielberg, adding their cars all together. If you're questioning what do the manufacturing team look like, Ferrari sitting second ahead of Ford, bearing in mind they only had 3 cars this entire season, and we lost one, I believe, earlier on in qualifying due to a disqualification. So it's looking like a very strong moment here for another top 3 cars. But if I had to kind of put someone to a little bit of a, you know, into notice here, it would probably be Sean Cassar. Meanwhile, let's keep on tabs with this battle, because Nick Ice was just approaching at the back of Dominic Zimmerman. Both Lizard Racing team drivers, 2 completely different manufacturers. Ford, who currently sit 3rd, Lamborghini, who currently sit 5th. And remember, BMW, Lamborghini and Aston Martin are only running with one singular driver in this one. Sorry, my apologies, BMW actually running with 2, but looks like Robin Bardawen couldn't be with us today, probably due to other commitments. But let's have a look and see that Ford Mustang is going to absolutely sing down the Mistral straight. The V8 really rumbling away, trying to go around the V10 Lamborghini and in towards turn number 10. It's time to get very risky, and Agius is really defending with his life. Let's have a look at that kind of McLaren battle here as Ilan Dimegrisci tries to go right round the outside of Mark D'Agostino. D'Agostino immediately on the defense here. As the McLaren crew, this is exactly what you want from your team when you're manufactured, because you can see they're a completely different team, with Agius being part of Project Avascio. I think D'Agostino not being part of anyone for the moment. So neither is Ilan Dimegrisci, which is you know, not, you know, you don't have to be in a team, but it does help being presented in these big colours. That's Manduka in. Manduka's into the pit lane here. That is going to be big. I wonder if that's because of potential damage or if that might be an early retirement for the man sitting second place in the Drivers' Championship. He's come in very, very early, and I think he's just trying to short shoot his pit stop, because if you pit now, you would not have to stay in the box for long. I think he's also going to try and maybe potentially get a set of tyres changed as well. Not entirely sure, but he drops all the way down to what seems like will potentially even be last at this rate, because he's still got the Aston Martin, the Ferrari, the BMW, the McLarens down in between 11th and 15th. But again, D'Agostino is now feeling the pressure here from Daryl Martinelli. Whilst this is all that has been going on, he's now feeling the pressure here because Dominic Zimmerman has also gone through as well. So D'Agostino in a bit of a terrible situation here, was running up in the heights of P4, now sits P6, but of course when Adrian Manduka exits the pits, he should be in what seemingly would be a net 7, which is not ideal whatsoever. And of course Daryl Martinelli is all a season under his belt. Of course, Maya Lafella, very experienced in her GT3 racing. So how will D'Agostino really approach this one? Lafella very wide there, but going out onto the blue strips on the outside outside asphalt of the Ricard circuit that really aligns the circuit, tries to really change the grip and slow them right down. I think Ryan Carabot has just taken the fastest lap again in his Ford Mustang. So he is opening that gap up now incredibly well, just in a 153.765. So the Maltese driver continuing to open up the lead here and really does it very, very efficiently. But of course, if Sean Cassar can maybe match that pace, that could be very, very crucial. But I think he has kind of opened that up, yeah, massively, because that's a 54.0, 0.3 of a second. Carabot was faster last time around. I want to see if Manduka has anyone close by him, because his first opponent would be Ericsson. So it doesn't look like he has anyone around him. I believe a fresh set of tyres for him. I think a new set of just top up of fuel, and that's his pit stop done. That is now going to be Manduka's stop, one and done. So I think it might be actually useful for me. Is actually now make a note of this on my wonderful Excel spreadsheet that I've made to kind of just go through pit stops, who's made one and who hasn't. So of course we can now put down that Manduka has indeed made a stop, and that will now eliminate his kind of mandatory stop. Let's have a look maybe toward the battles with the McLarens, the Ford Mustangs, and the Lamborghini, because again Daryl Martinelli decides to lose a little bit of touch here to Mark D'Agostino. So I think D'Agostino has really tried and successfully opened the gap up just a little bit, not too much, but it's enough to really get away. And I think he's been a man to really highlight recently, just because of his mistake, but he's also bringing in a little bit of fight back into his McLaren. He knows that car is mighty strong, and he wants to make do with it, because he could definitely be up in the lofty heights of P4, but making mistakes in these early stages are just not what you need at this stage. You really want to be keeping the consistency, and if you're dropping a couple of places down, that's really not going to help you in your race. I really think he was a top contender. Yeah, he could have been at some point third in this standing. It looks like Ilan Dimegrishi has made his way into the pit lane as well. So the man sitting fourth in this championship way now into the pit lane, and will now top up the field for the McLaren team. So I think they've really done the Adrian Manduka route of if there's a car ahead of me and I think that the undercut needs to be made, that's going to be really, really risky, I think, to be making these early stops now, because at a later stage when your tires are so worn, the fuel signs drain, you're gonna be hoping to be in the right position. I think what Manduka is hoping to do really is just make sure that he is, you know, he's in front of Carabao by the time that the Ford Mustang comes out the pit lane. And he can just hold him up just that little bit. All he needs to do is get ahead of that Ford Mustang. And if, you know, when you're losing a championship in these early stages by 17 points, these are kind of the risky situations that he needs to be making. And I think that what's worse off as well, he's got no car to follow. He's got absolutely no one else to follow. And look at this. Ilan Dimek Grishi is now officially behind Manduka to say. So I was very much concerned for a moment there until they crossed the sector point that the McLaren was ahead of the Ferrari. I was about to say that would have been an absolute disaster class for the Ferrari driver. But those two have now made stops here in these early stages. These are the risks that they've decided to take to try and boost themselves into some top places, because I think what these drivers are really figuring out is that, you know, it is very, very difficult to make a maneuver around this circuit. You know, you've got that long Mistral, but of course you need to be in a Ford Mustang, or you need to be in maybe an Aston Martin or a BMW to be able to make those maneuvers. If you're kind of a more lenient car, such as the McLaren, such as the Ferrari, then you really need to be ahead of these guys and really opening up that gap in order to get an opportunity in here for, you know, for these moments. And I think Manduka need to try and make something happen. Remember, before this race happened, we had 6 rounds to go, and I think that's interesting that already in this early stage of not just the race, but in this championship, he's already having to make the risky move. I think Manduka would be so heartbroken if he finished second once again. You know, that's what he's here for. He's not here to finish second. He's not here to take a championship line down to absolutely anyone. You know, we might have Max Verstappen in this livery. He still wouldn't want to finish second. We all know how good Max is as sim racing. He's an absolute advocate for it. You know, currently probably doing some iRacing right now. Let's have a look back here to Dominic Zimmerman and Mark D'Agostino, still fighting over 5th place here. So the green Lamborghini up against the papaya blue and all black McLaren, again continuing to follow each other. I think this is what comes to my point here, is that, you know, it's so so difficult with these nimble cars to really open up a gap here. We know how fast those McLarens were down the Mistral straight, but then you get to this Lamborghini, and let's just see what the aerodynamics is like, because I guess the Lambo is really being set up aerodynamically with fine precision here, because I think that's the way they wanted to go in their, you know, aerodynamic-ish design. You know, you need to have a little bit of aggression in it as well. You know, putting the airbox right at the top there, a very interesting concept that I don't think a lot of other teams have kind of gone for. I really do believe that it's a fantastic kind of piece of innovation they've kind of gone with as well. So Dominic Zimmerman still pushing through, as Daryl Martinelli has been awarded a drive-through penalty. That Ferrari down there in 7th was pressurizing D'Agostino in these early stages, but that scarlet red Ferrari is not going to be looking in a fine and dandy place this time around. I think he's now going to be really in a place where just looking at a very, very difficult point of this race. And speaking of this race, I think that the tyres will be starting to really come into this kind of peak, and then they'll start to really start dying off. So I wonder if Martinelli, let's just stick with the Scuderia Ferrari driver for now, and I wonder if he'll just take the brunt of that drive-through penalty in these early stages. It might even be because of those off-track excursions, I wonder. He's maybe gone a little bit too wide at some places, especially, you know, it's so easy to do that at turn 7 because, you know, you usually try and full throttle the car through that left-hander. Yes, he will be coming to the pits and taking the brunt of that penalty. So as I was saying, yeah, I just wonder if he's going to be able to, you know, take the brunt, you know, if he's going to try and just use that. I've kind of lost my train of thought, in all honesty. So, you know, I think he's going to have to try and really have to come back from that. Because remember, he also has to make a mandatory stop in that. Let's take a look back to Zimmerman and D'Agostino, because that battle again is staying close, but that Lambo has really just opened up the gap through these little sections, and this is what I'm talking about, like turn number 7 here. You try and take that as flat as you possibly can, but you know, if you've got a car that's maybe a little bit under maybe a little bit too heavy, or the tires are worn out, you know, you're going to be sacrificing a little bit of speed in that cause. So it will be hugely interesting to see if that is the reason why the drive-through penalty has come at the expense of Daryl Martinelli. And I just want to see where he is sitting at this moment in time, because of course he is out of the pit lane. He's apparently sitting in P10, and that is indeed correct, because he's ahead of Chris Gapp, he's ahead of Ericsson, he's ahead of Barbara, he's ahead of Manduka as well. I'm guessing he's still going to be seeing absolutely nothing in front of him, which again is such a tough situation, because you know, you really want to be on the back of those kind of rear towards the rear drivers by this stage of this race, because you need to be using those fresh tires, those extra fuel that you have in the back of your car to really try and push forward, because that's exactly what he needs to do. He just needs to use those tires, use the fuel, and to then just push forward, try and take the lead of the race, and then just hold it there for the entirety of the rest of the event. So it will be a massive tough for Manduka, but with Martinelli at this moment in time, I think he's just in that very difficult position. You know, a lot of drivers will have those difficult moments of, you know, not having a car in front of them and really just kind of feeling alone, which is really kind of important, because when you do have a car in front, you do have that ability to push on and push on and push on. Look towards that, you know, front, towards that car, being able to learn whatever they're kind of doing, you know, take some of your advantages and their disadvantages and really put it into your racecraft as well. So yeah, Martinelli kind of running in no man's land, but you kind of just got to self-focus and really just put in those qualifying laps that he possibly can. I do wonder if at some point he may just come into the pits and get that early pit stop done. We have 21.5 minutes left to go of the pit window, 26 remaining of this entire race. So we've already gone close to 20 minutes of this race. And let's have a look towards maybe the front of the field where you know, our podium sisters are. There is Ryan Carabot. We've barely seen him at all, because he's running so well at 153.547 last time around, and then a 53.727. So staying super consistent. You know, that's unbelievable consistency from the Ford Mustang. And that is absolutely amazing to see. You know, Carabao has really grappled that Ford Mustang and really is driving it into some clean air. Sean Cassard, meanwhile, has made his way into the pit. So has Mark D'Agostino. So what it seems like to me is that it's important to be making those early stops, but I don't know if that's the domino effect that was created by Adrian Manduka, who is of course trying to lead this race. Just kind of catching my breath a little bit there. You can see that Adrian Manduka is still about 3 seconds off Simon Barbara in his McLaren. So it's not an ideal situation where he is wanting to be Yeah, but I want to switch over here for a moment to Sean Cassar, just to kind of see where he is in his pit stop fake. And remember, Sean Cassar was pretty much running third here, and he's about to now exit the pit lane. This is going to give us a brilliant idea of the pace that, oh my goodness me, Barbara just almost exiting in towards the back there of Sean Cassar, and very, very crucially, Sean Cassar is now ahead of Adrian Manduca. That is going to be massive in this race, and just shows the Ferrari is not quite there in the setup. It's not been quite there in the pace, and Cassar is able to just go out there, but he's running himself into loads of traffic there. He has got, of course, what seems like Barbara, he's got Ericsson, he's got Gas in front of him as well, so he now needs to maneuver around these cars as quickly as possible, trying to take the wide line and then on toward the exit here. That's going to be Adrian Manduca just slowly reeling him in every single time that he is stuck behind his manufacturer teammate. He's going to glide on by past Simon Barbara, and now will take on the road 11th place. Now it is down to Karabot to continuously make those important consistent laps. For Cassar, it's all about just pushing that car to its absolute limits. He knows that he has it in his back pocket. It is just all about trying to just not let that Ferrari get up behind you and put him in his mirrors. Manduca has already got past Simon Barbara as well, so you know that's going to be a big part of his race. That's probably the first car he's overtook this entire race, which in all honesty, I don't know how much that's going to be useful information to him, and probably it's going to be more frustrating than anything. So 22 minutes and 50 seconds left on the clock. About Daryl Martinelli, because of course he's ahead of Johan Borsch, who's come into the pits recently. So does Gabriele Quattromani, and he's running pretty well in the Ferrari despite having his drive-through penalty. But remember, he still needs to make his stop. He still needs to make a mandatory stop in this race. And you see they're tumbling down. That's going to be Johan Borsch and Gabriele Quattromani. So they were, quite at the back. They were outside the top 10, in fact, before making their stops. And we now get to see Johan Borsch in the over 40 club to take to the track once again, dropping down to what seems like 14th, it seems. But I think there is a car behind him. Could that be? It is indeed Ryan Karabos out in front. So he's already approaching the back marker, which is interesting, because I think Ryan's the type of driver that will want to just extend that stop entirely. So there was Gabriele Quattromani out there at the back there. So I think Karabot may have got a little bit of a scare when Gabriele Quattromani did exit the pit lane, because those tyres would have been quite heated, I'd say, for Gabriele Quattromani. They would come out of the tyre ovens placed right on the car, but also had a little bit of cooling time before then heading out of the track and being put through the forces. That Rusty's car is looking absolutely fantastic as well. I really hope to see maybe one run in the future, but of course you have to go through licensing, which is not going to be the most fun thing to do. Okay, let's keep an eye here on well, another driver that has been really pushing hard here, Adrian Manduca, but he's in the 154.9. That is, so far off his best time, which is, not what he wants to hear, but it's the honest truth. He's behind Cassar, and I think the mental strength of Manduca has been really drained in the last 10 minutes. He's, really not been the same driver that he was, making those bold strategy attempts. Again, it's just not worked. I think the McLaren has really worked around here, and it's been absolutely great to see the British flag. We could well kind of argue they're Kiwi, thanks to the founder Bruce McLaren coming from New Zealand. Again, just keep an eye on these kind of net front two here. Well, I should say second and third really, because Karabot has been absolutely pacey all race long. And speaking of Karabot, in he comes to the pit lane, just following in the tyre tracks here of Chris Gatt. I think the only thing that they have to kind of go with is the, you know, Gatt, I think Quattromani and Johan Borg have kind of been just been blocking his way momentarily during this entire last lap, and I think that may open a bit of a gap to, or maybe close the gap back to Sean Cassar, but the pace he's really shown, he's the only one that's kind of had that purple check mark to say that he's had the fastest lap. Through goes Martinelli. What about Cassar? So I think that he's going to be maybe within contention. Here he is running his way all the way down the long main straight here, just being followed by Adrian Manduka. And I think that Ryan Karabot has managed to get out ahead by a long margin here. I think that was his car in the distance, so he's probably heading through 3 in towards 4 and then in towards 5 and 6 now. It seems like there is the Ford Mustang, the project of their Chio car, that is absolutely romping it down. Of course, fresh tyres on that booming V8 engine, and he was now trying to stamp off down the road. You just saw Sean Cassar in the background there. It seemed like they're trying to get round. It seemed like Chris Gatt, I believe. I don't think it was, because he would have been ahead of Karabot. He was ahead of Karabot. So Gatt was leaving the pit lane when Karabot was coming in. So I think that might have actually been Sean Cassar. Denzel Agius is into the pit lane with 13 minutes to go left of the pit window being open. So yeah, let's have a gander here. So we know that Brian Karabot's made a pit stop, so has Sean Cassar. Denzel Agius has made a pit stop as well. What about Daryl Martinelli? No, he has not. Nick Ice has made a stop, it seems like. So has Dominic Zimmerman. Agostino has made one as well. So has Borges. So has Quattromani. So has Gatt as well. So we're looking at a pretty positive one here. Daryl Martinelli does finally make his way into the pit lane, and that will be now Karabot now into, presume, is going to be the lead here of this race. And who with that just coming out of the pit lane, is that going to be an importance to this race here? Because I wonder if that's going to be either a back marker or if that's going to actually be officially net second in the standings. It looks to be Sean Cassar. We'll see what happens when we go over the first sector timing beam. It is seemingly Sean Cassar with that number 2 to the in the bottom right hand corner. So yeah, obvious back markers. It seems like that Karabots has been going about and really strongly in his business. He turns and rotates that car around some of these corners. Now we're starting to get updates, which seem like they're doing every single sector, which is it's nice. They probably didn't quite have the graphics to do an exact change of position, but it's good for now. It's you get given what you dealt with, really. So Sean Cassar carry on here in second ahead of Adrian Manduka. Denzel Agius will go to 4th here ahead of Nick Ice. So I think the McLarens have just been really struggling with their race pace. I think Sean Cassar, only Sean Cassar and Denzel Agius have really been the ones that have been able to really maximize the strength of that McLaren 720S GT3. Well, Sean Cassar, part of the Intercomp BMD SimSport team as well. I believe a couple of our season 1 drivers were a part of that as well. So it's been really interesting, and I think that by that account, that's absolutely everyone that has made a stop here. Hell has made a stop. I believe Ericsson's been in as well. I can confirm, and Barbara, I think, has also been in as well. So that now means the pit stop phase is all over. So it's just down to pure racing speed here for the next 15 minutes here at the circuit Paul Ricard. you're just joining us here on Velocity Esports Racing, we have we're ahead of round 3 of the ACER Malta GT3 Championship. And of course, Ryan Carabot has led from lights to flag so far to this current point, but you know, we still have 14 minutes left in this race to decide the eventual results of this one. It's been a tough battle between Sean Cassar and Adrian Manduca that has been down to the pit stops, with Adrian Manduca making a very bold claim to go into the pits in the very early stages. He now sits in third. That Ferrari just isn't quite maximizing what it possibly can. I think it does seem to be struggling, the entire manufacturer, because you know, Gabriel Quattromani has been struggling, so has Daryl Martinelli, albeit he's had to serve a drive-through penalty during this one. He now sits down there in P12. And Duke to continue to try and push on here. But yeah, you can see Quattromani and Daryl Martinelli get a little bit close to each other as they continue to battle their way through some of these corners on the south of France. I think that Gabriel Quattromani will be really looking to see if he can potentially put it up into the top 10, but so currently that's being held by Johan Borsch in his Aston Martin, so he's only just ahead. So still potential for the Ferrari manufacturer to be able to put two of their cars into the top 10. It's just about really can Johan Borsch hold on, because I've not really seen what that Aston Martin has been like over the course of this race. It's, you know, it's held up its own, but you know, it's not really gone forwards or it's not really gone backwards. So Johan Borsch just kind of sitting pretty there in the midfield. We go under 13 minutes left of this one, and it's going to be quite a bit of a stalemate for now, unless we start to get a little bit of a tussle. I wonder if that's maybe Martinelli approaching the back here of Gabriel Quattromani. Maybe if they're going to start having a bit of a duel over 11th place. I mean, you know, maybe manufacturer pride, but of course Manduca leading that one by miles ahead of the rest of these two. So I think for Ferrari at this moment in time, I think it's just kind of hold stations unless they can go and hunt down Johan Borsch's Aston Martin and maybe take a place or two. But remember, you do get points all the way down to 18, down to 19th in this championship. Of course, first place gives you 30 points, second gives you 24, third gives you 19, then fourth gives you 16th, and it goes into Inklands of 2, followed by Inklands of 1. They're really trying to maximize themselves and get a good 10 points for both themselves and the Ferrari manufacturer. But of course, Johan Borsch is going to continue to try and do that as well. Known James Smith as well, so he's currently running 6th in the driver's standings coming into this event. Of course, had a 6th and an 8th place. Sorry, a 6th and an 8th place so far this season. And that's Daryl Martinelli going a little bit wide off the Mistral, I believe. No, sorry, that was Quattromani. My apologies on that one. So a little bit of confusion between these two scarlet red cars, but again, they're still playing in close contention. But yeah, in terms of Aston Martin's stake out here, it does look like James Smith being not present is going to be the real kicker for them. I believe that Johan Borsch will again put himself into the top 10 for the second time this season. The only time where he didn't would have been Zandvoort, where he got only 12th place this season. So again, Johan still working away. You can see there on the left hand side, he is a silver class driver. So the pros are represented by white, the kind of the semi-pros are represented by silver, and the rookies are represented in red. Drive-through penalty here for Gabriele Quattramani. The 444 has been given a penalty behind Daryl Martinelli. So how far will that drop him is my question, because of course Chris Gatt is quite the way back from the Ferrari driver. You may be able to get a little bit of a sense. Yeah, that's a long way back for Chris Gatt and Ericsson and Simon Barbara. So I think for Gabriele Quattramani, you might as well just go and take the brunt this time around and see if he can potentially go and take another position. So just go and keep 12th, and we'll have to get out the goes on his battle with Daryl Martinelli. That battle for second place, Sean Cassar and Adrian Manduca, because that has been a battle that has been, brewing very. I wouldn't say brewing. I would say more simmering. It's not been quite boiling, but maybe at a half boil. It seems like. It's like taking an hour to cook an egg, it seems like. But Sean Cassar, I think it's just been so comfortable at the wheel of that McLaren 720S GT3 with the Intercomp BDM team, and I think that's been a real praise to the McLaren car itself, and B, Sean as a driver, because of course I did wonder if Adrian Manduca would have been the driver to try and topple in this one. He put himself on the front row, put himself alongside Karabot for that run down towards turn number 1. But it evidently seemed like over the course of the next 20 minutes of that race start, that the race really came to the McLaren cars. It has been a pacey car to really drive, and I've been massively impressed with how it's gone. The setups have been superb. I've been really singing the praises of the setup of that McLaren. It's just been one that you can't really falter. And I do wonder if you maybe take that momentum into Ricardo Tormo and Barcelona, and then potentially the rest of the season, because Sean Cassar has been pretty much a star, I'd say, potentially this season. Let's not hide away from the fact that Ryan Karabot is on to win his third race of the season. But you can really tell how strong Sean Cassar has come on. Staying consistent. It's a second and a third, and it'll come to a second. He will go and take the second place in the championship away from Adrian Manduca. But how the Papaya and blue and black car has been coming on so strong, and I do think there's some big hopes for Sean Cassar. It may not be this season, but maybe when it comes to season 3 or season 4, he could be right up there. I really hope this isn't going to be a one-season wonder for Sean Cassar. I'd love to see him back, try challenging potentially for the title, as long as a certain Mr. Karabot that really run away with it. But again, it may be times where Ryan Karabot does have to take a step aside for away from sim racing due to life outside of esports and sim racing. But those are going to be the kind of races where second place in the championship really has to make amends, because you do get a whole hunk of points out from that. And again, Karabot is absolutely flying. He is an absolute man on a mission with 6 minutes to go. What about Zimmerman and Mark D'Agostino? Because that's been a battle that's been really brewing all race long, and Zimmerman is still holding out in front of D'Agostino, and I think Mark at this rate is going to be very frustrated, because the tyres are going to start going away from him, and we now see the pit window is now about to shut. That doesn't really matter to anyone, because everyone completed their pit stops about 10 minutes ago. So in terms of this little battle, yes, the McLaren has been so strong, but I think you really have to give credit to Dominic Zimmerman. You know, he's about to equal his best finish in the championship, and that Lizard Racing team, I'm sure, will be absolutely going crazy for this result. You know, it's been absolutely amazing, especially with it being the sole Lamborghini. You know, the only Lamborghini that we've seen in this entire championship, and you know, it wasn't used last year. We had Ferraris, we had McLarens like this year, we had Ford like this year, we had BMWs, and we've kind of just swapped the Bentley out, the Aston Martins and the Lamborghini and the singular Porsche that turned up.
The window is now closed.
And retired during the Zandvoort weekend of it, I think about 3 weeks ago now. Again, Zimmerman really holding down the Lamborghini castle. Will look to take another good result. Somebody's been very quiet in this race. The man ahead of him. What about Nick Ice? Is he maybe challenging Denzel Agius for what could be 4th place? No, it doesn't seem like. He's just kind of working himself at this rate in time. Nick Ice has ended up being another driver that's been highly impressive. You know, gets 4th in his opening round at Zandvoort, but then did struggle and have a bit of a torrid time as Spielberg. He's then going to come back swinging, I think, take another 5th place unless there's problems up ahead, which I don't believe that there will be. Yeah, Nick Ice is going to be another driver to potentially keep an eye out for the remainder of the season. Maybe again similar to maybe Sean Cassar, maybe another driver who is able to fight up at the top heights of the championship. But remember, all of those guys are going to be really working together, very close knit as well. So that'll be Nick Ice, Dominic Zimmerman, and now we're seeing other drivers. Now we're seeing Sean Cassar trying to still navigate through turn number 3 and on towards 4. And I wonder what Manduka must be feeling as he approaches now Chris Gatt here, because you know he's been a driver that has needed that 2nd place desperately in order to kind of keep his form up. But you know, when you're really trying to get that Ferrari into the zone, really put that risky strategy, you know, the 3rd round of the season, you know, there's desperate times calling for desperate measures in that one. I think Adrian Manduka at this moment in time, I think he's going to be leaving the circuit. Paul Ricard feeling a little bit frustrated, in all honesty. He's got a great caliper about him. You know, we've seen him in the V1 Malta series. We've seen him in the GT3 championship. He's been ultra competitive, and he has been a reigning champion in the V1 Malta series. I think back at season 6, if my memory serves me correct, or it might be season 5, in fact, because I remember him coming in as the season champion. That was the first time I covered the V1 Malta series. He was actually the reigning champion, and he was right in the top 4, and I think only finished, I believe it might have been 3rd in that one. Currently don't have the V1 Malta spreadsheet up, so yeah, I can't quite tell you that for a fact, but evidently, you know, his race cars have been super strong, and we will indeed get 2 laps remaining here. I think maybe Gats will be the first one to kind of receive that checker flag, and I think once you receive that checker flag, you will be locked in to your results. So when he crosses the line, he'll be immediately locked into 13th, and then Ericsson into 14th, and Barbara into 15th, and then of course we'll switch over to Karabot once we get onto that final lap. But you know, let's have a look and see if any battles are kind of brewing at the moment, like a good old cup of tea here in the UK. I think that there will be maybe a few, but I think they've all been quite tame. Paul Ricard has, you know, not really been a circuit that has been known for its overtaking necessarily. Maybe in the singles, because of course, you know, you've got that tyre deficit, you've got those struggles, and I think really in the latter, well, in the 2022, the cars were shuttering themselves and I'm talking about the Formula One cars, you had that really difficult bit through turn number 5, that very tight right-hander we've just gone past. There's a real dip in the corner. It's almost like it feels like a very tiny pothole in a way. Questioning my line, but you can see in the camera angles they turn
right, man. Neither on
the wheel just
lap.
lifts up. It doesn't make any contact with the road, and I'm not entirely sure that might be the roll bars, or kind of allowing that amount to kind of, or anything to the air, or it's just kind of the surface of the car. But that is going to be pretty much why that is the thing. But Ilan Dimek-Girish, very unfortunate to get a drive-through penalty on the penultimate lap of the race. But somebody who's on his final lap is Ryan Carabots. We've not really seen much of him because he's been leading by a solitary good amount. And it's been unbelievable to see this man every single time he hops in the sim, no matter what car you give him. As long as he does one test session, I think, with it, as long as he maybe dials it in for an hour or two, he can drive pretty much anything. Honestly, let's put him in one of the weenie mobiles that we saw just before the Indianapolis 500. Let's put him in one of those before the next year's Indianapolis 500. I'm sure he'll probably win that, in all honesty. Ryan Carabot in his Ford Mustang has been a absolute on top of a very incredible gift, and that gift just keeps on giving for the Maltese leading driver. He will approach those last couple of corners in toward the last sector and will glide through some of these corners, because he is about to take that flag. It's just a moment of time here before that rumbling V8 will come to a grumbling close. Ryan Carabot, it's 3 on the bounce for the Maltese driver. He wins in Paul Ricard, and a fantastic finish for him. He can win in absolutely anything, it seems, but a big result here for sure. It is second on the road. He retakes second place in the Drivers' Championship, but again will lose points to championship leader Ryan Carabots. Adrian Manduka pulls the car over. I don't think he is very visibly happy with that third place. It could have been more than he had hoped for, but the pace in that Ferrari was just not there. Denzel Adjius will take home P5. Nick Ice will take home P6, and a stellar drive for Dominic Zimmerman to take home P6. Mark D'Agostino will be the highest ranked silver driver. Ilan Dimek-Girish will have a 30-second time penalty for an unserved drive-through penalty, so he will drop behind Maya Lafella, who will go up to P8, and Daryl Martinelli will get promoted a position as well. Johan Borsch may be on the road next. He's coming into those last couple of corners, and I think that he may just miss the cut for Ilan Dimek-Girish's 30-second penalty. But 11th place for Johan Borsch, Gabriel Quattromani into the pits, Chris Gatz, Ericsson, Barbara and Adrian never got going in the first place. And there we have it, a race here at Paul Ricard, which seemed quite tame, it seems like. Paul Ricard not quite open in terms of its overtaking opportunities, but I think what we saw tonight was definitely a solitary, another founding of this championship. We really saw some of the great drives and some really, really good stuff there. McLaren, how good were they tonight? Well, of course, we did have that penalty for what seemed like Ilan Dimek-Girish, but of course Mark D'Agostino was trying to find his confidence as well. I just wasn't able to overtake Zimmerman, but I think a second and a fourth place, I think, for them will be absolutely fantastic with them. So I think they'll be absolutely delighted with that. And of course, they will get some big points in the manufacturers teams. What about next week? Well, we then go and head in towards the circuit Ricardo Tormo. We hop over from France to Spain, October 30th, and of course, as I mentioned, we'll have our break, but we're just going maybe 2-3 hours up the road, up northeast of Spain, where you find the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia, and then we'll pack our bags. We have a road trip, a flight across the pond to take on 3 incredible US circuits with Laguna Seca, Watkins Glen, and the Circuit of the Americas. Well, let's have a chat about that results tonight, because Ryan Carabot, what an absolute run he is on. 3 pole positions, 3 wins, 3 fastest laps. Can anybody stop him? That is going to be the big question. In all honesty, the only person that can stop him is Ryan Carabot himself. I don't think I can make that any more obvious. I'm just having a look at it on my spreadsheet, and it's just unbelievable. He goes to 90 points out of 90 points. You know, I don't think I've really seen that amount of dominance from a singular driver in an opening stage. And I think the one that kind of springs to me, and sorry to make like a real life reference, but it's the 2016 Nico Rosberg. He'd won 4 races out of the first 4. And then he went to Spain, and of course that infamous Silver Arrows War boiled over. But, you know, if Ryan Carabot can leave Europe with 5 wins out of 5, you know, there is going to be a potential championship on the line come Laguna Seca with 3 rounds to go. And I think it kind of comes to the point of saying, at what point will that Ford Mustang will not suit a circuit? I genuinely believe that it will struggle not to suit the circuit, especially when Carabot will have it dialed in completely. But you know, you have to really give some real credit here to like Sean Cassar and Adrian Manduca. Really fought hard. Sean Cassar really got that McLaren working here, as well as Adrian Manduca. He tried that undercut, massive undercut, but again, just didn't quite work. I don't think the Ferrari is quite with it today. So you'll have to hope on the next 2 Spanish rounds to kind of say, I'm in or I'm out of this championship battle. I think Dominic Zimmerman was also someone to really credit, as well as Mark D'Agostino, who has continuously been pushing that car super hard. And again, I think there's a lot of drivers out here with a big potential, and a lot of battles, I'm sure, that will commence next summer around when we hit Valencia, when we hit the circuit Ricardo Tormo for the 4th round of the ACER Malta GT3 Championship. Before I go, a big thank you to these collaborators: Hyundai, Intercomp, Monsters Energy, Brand Garage, Level Academy, and the specialists, all here on a production brought to you by Velocity Esports Racing. We'll see you in a week when we head over to sunny Spain for the Circuit Ricardo Tormo. See you later. Take care. Good night. We'll see you in Valencia.